Joe Biden's growing list of failures. For many, electing Joe Biden represented a return to normality, moderation, unity, and competence. Unfortunately, his presidency has only ushered in hyper-divisiveness, immoderate policy, venality and staggering incompetence. The list of Biden's failures is long, and it grows daily. But here are the highlights of that list. First, of course, is the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Biden pulled out our troops before getting out our civilians, green card holders and allies, then had to send troops back in to help them get out. Yet even then, Biden failed to get everyone out, despite promising to do so. And in addition to stranding people, the evacuation left billions of dollars worth of arms, vehicles and equipment in the hands of the Taliban, abandoned a strategic base in the fight against terrorism, and allowed the release of imprisoned hard-core terrorists.
Mr. President, there had not been a U.S. service member killed in combat in Afghanistan since February of 2020. You set a deadline, you pulled troops out, you sent troops back in, and now 12 Marines are dead. You said the buck stops with you. Do you bear any responsibility for the way that things have unfolded in the last 2 weeks?
I bear responsibility for fundamentally all that's happened.
We didn't have one soldier killed. In 18 months, not one soldier was killed.
The former president made a deal with the Taliban that he would get all American forces out of Afghanistan by May 1. In return, the commitment was made, and that was a year before. In return, he was given a commitment that would not attack any American forces.
Well, I took a lot of heat, tremendous heat. So I spoke to this man, his name was Abdul, and I said, Abdul, if you kill our soldiers, we're going to hit you harder than any country has ever been hit in the history of the world.
Remember that?
I was getting out of, but I would have kept Bagram, because Bagram's 1 hour away from where China, forget about Afghanistan, where China makes its nuclear weapons. 1 hour away. The biggest, most powerful runways in the world. We built it many years ago for tens of billions of dollars, and we gave it away one night. We just left.
Mr. President, respectfully, since I don't think that the issue that, do you think that people have an issue with pulling out of Afghanistan or just the way that things have happened?
But they didn't kill anybody for 18 months. I'm very proud. In fact, Biden got up and he actually said that. And you know what happened? His people start screaming, don't say that!
Remember that? I'm being serious.
But what they don't talk about, they talk about the equipment, they talk about the fact that there are still to this day a lot of Americans in there that we've lost contact with. It's a rough place. But they don't talk about the fact that many of these soldiers were absolutely destroyed.
I think they have an issue that people are likely to get hurt. Some, as we've seen, have gotten killed, and that it is messy.
They took out the soldiers first. You don't take the soldiers first. You take the soldiers out last.
Remember that? I'm being serious.
It's a very sad thing. I got it down to 2,500 people. I was the one that got it down, but we were going to get out with dignity, with strength. We were going to be respected and admired.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers. Now a damning new report blames the Biden administration for being slow to evacuate U.S. citizens and Afghan allies, according to an Army investigation first obtained by the Washington Post. One national security official saying an evacuation would signal we have failed.
I want every piece of steel, I want every screw, I want every nut, I want every bolt, I want every tractor, I want every Jeep. You know what they did? They left 700,000 rifles and guns, 700,000. They left 70,000 vehicles, 70,000, many of them brand new, many of them armor-plated, where they have 6 inches of steel in the bottom. Cost you millions of dollars to build. And they left that all behind.
Imagine where we'd be if I had indicated on May the 1st I was not going to renegotiate a evacuation date.
He's still there. He's still the leader of the Taliban, but now he's got $85 billion worth of our equipment. So now I read the other day that the Taliban, that Afghanistan, is the second largest seller of arms anywhere in the world because they're selling everything that we gave them.
Another Biden disaster happened at the southern border. The number of illegal immigrants that streamed into the country this year, all because of Biden's refusal to enforce our immigration laws, is stunning. That number includes thousands of so-called amnesty seekers, who are generally released into the country with an order that they show up for a hearing in the distant future, an order that often goes ignored. It also includes people who are unvaccinated or infected with COVID-19, as well as gang members, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, and even individuals on terrorism watch lists. The president's primary duty is to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Biden has willfully failed to do so. That is an impeachable offense.
I want to make it clear, there's a lot of talk, with good reason, about the number of executive orders that I've signed. I'm not making new law. I'm eliminating bad policy. What I'm doing is taking on the issues that 99% of them, that the last president of the United States, issued executive orders I thought were very counterproductive to our security, counterproductive to who we are as a country.
You pledged during your campaign to keep New York City a sanctuary, a city. Do you have any concern that policy is attracting more people to the border, more people to cross the border to make that dangerous trip?
No, not at all. This city has always been a sanctuary city, and we've always managed those who wanted to come to New York City to pursue the American dream.
A new reality for the city.
We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. 110,000 migrants. We have to feed, clothe, house, educate the children, wash their laundry sheets, give them everything they need, health care. Month after month, I stood up and I said, this is going to come to a neighborhood near you. Well, we're here.
Ago, we saw the city here with representatives welcoming the migrants with open arms, providing resources. At what point did you see that change?
So unfortunately, the migrants have been used as political pawns since day one, which is why you had so many city agencies and politicians popping their head in, because it was really popular. It was a way for them to show that they actually cared. But there was no real follow-through. They're not looking at the migrants as human beings. They're looking at them as numbers. They're looking at them as a way to get more money from the federal government. And they're also using them for their own tactic, which is to deter more people from coming here to New York City.
Right up with these two disasters is that of inflation. Prices are rising steeply, with no end in sight. On top of what already amounts to a cruel tax on the poor and those on fixed incomes, Biden wants to spend trillions more, which will just make inflation even worse. A principal cause of the current inflation is high energy prices, the product of Biden's energy policies. Upon assuming office, Biden immediately cancelled the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have employed some 11,000 people. The oil that would have come through the pipeline will still come in, though by costlier and more polluting means, trucks and rail. At the same time, Biden gave his approval for the Nord Stream pipeline from Russia to Germany. At the same time, he was restricting domestic oil and gas production, leading to higher gas and heating prices. Biden called on OPEC and Russia to supply more oil and gas in order to reduce those prices.
Joe Biden tonight continues to say no to American energy, as we've been discussing, continues to say no to restoring energy independence. Here with reaction, former Keystone XL pipeline worker Neil Crabtree is with us, along with Ohio Republican Congressman Jim Jordan. Neil, let me start with you. How did you feel when you heard that not only was your project canceled, but almost simultaneously a waiver was given to Vladimir Putin for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline? How'd that make you feel?
We take a lot of pride in what we do, and I'm not trying to be sounding like a wimp here, but it broke our hearts. You know, we take a lot of pride in producing American energy. We want to do it here at home. Let me just say something. I take no pride in saying what I'm about to say right now, but the President of the United States is lying to you when he says that his policies have nothing to do with the prices of energy. They have everything to do with the prices going up. And I'm glad you had Congressman Jim Jordan on with me tonight, and he can back me up on this. I've sat in congressional hearings where they called every CEO in from the major companies in this country, and they told them they're going to stop producing energy. And he's the only one who stood up and said, no, this is wrong. So, yes, Joe Biden, your policies have everything to do with what's going on in this country right now.
Jim Jordan, you know, if we would open up the gas potential of Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, that'd be huge. You're listening to Neil's story here, and you know, I just, frankly, it makes no sense to me. Maybe it'll make sense to you, or you can make sense of it.
No, this is the great divide in America today, Sean. You got the, quote, elite and the crazy left who think that there's no problem having $4 and $5 gas. And then you got middle America. You got the working and middle-class American families who understand what this means. So this is the great. You had Colbert say, oh, just go buy a Tesla. And Buttigieg said, you know, buy an electric vehicle.
Working smoke alarms in their house alerted them to the situation, and they saw that their electric vehicle in the garage was on fire. Once the fire was controlled, our firefighters determined that the lithium-ion battery pack inside the vehicle was still burning. That poses a great hazard and a great risk to everything around it, not only because of the risk of the fire spreading, but because the smoke that's coming off of the vehicle is very toxic. Once firefighters knew that an electric vehicle was involved, the hazardous materials team responded to the scene. Those apparatus are equipped with a specialized electric vehicle fire blanket, which is used to smother the fire. Those blankets cost anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000, and the one that we are using here at South Metro weighs 62 pounds. So it's a very heavy blanket. It takes at least 4 personnel to put it on the vehicle. They're using respiratory protection while they're doing that so that they're staying safe and making sure that their airways are protected from that toxin. Something that was used for the first time at South Metro and something new to our community members was seeing a procession involving law enforcement leading the way with electric vehicles on a tow truck covered in this blanket and somewhat smoking as they drove down the road with a fire department escort. Some people might be wondering why we don't just use water on that like a normal vehicle fire, a combustion engine fire, and it's because it's ineffective. It's very difficult to get the water where it needs to go into the battery pack, and when those lithium-ion batteries are in a thermal runaway situation, it can take tens of thousands of gallons of water to extinguish them. Even in that case, if it does extinguish them, now we've created a bigger hazardous materials incident with the runoff water.
The electric car industry is scouring the earth for battery metals. From lithium in the Chilean salt flats, to nickel in Indonesian rainforests, to valuable metals on the deep sea floor. China, the US and Europe are engaged in a resource arms race that stretches around the globe to try to meet skyrocketing demand. But extracting those raw materials comes at a cost, which can include scarred landscapes, toxic pollution, and dangerous working conditions.
Biden has fully embraced identity politics in the federal bureaucracy. Many of his appointees have been selected based on their race, sex, LGBT status and so on, and not because they were the most qualified persons available. Biden has also reinstated critical race theory training for federal employees. His administration thus reinforces rather than rebuts the poisonous lies now spread throughout our educational system and in the body politic. Another Biden failure has been his mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Biden inherited the enormous benefit of coronavirus vaccines produced by the Trump administration's Operation Warp Speed. His response to the COVID pandemic thereafter has been characterized by frequent policy reversals. The most recent of which is the unconstitutional ordering of vaccine mandates, a move that, previously, the president said he would never make. As a result, the country is faced with the resignation and firing of police officers, firefighters, healthcare workers, and armed forces personnel. Biden has thoroughly politicized the enforcement of federal law. His Justice Department fails to treat equal offenders equally. It meted out harsh punishments and lengthy pre-trial detentions to those who on the 6th of January broke into the capital, few of whom engaged in any violence or destruction of property. They were, at most, guilty of trespass and obstructing a governmental proceeding, offences which have been frequently committed by left-wing groups. Recall, for example, the Kavanaugh hearings. Contrast the treatment of the 6th of January defendants with, for example, the Dodgers' treatment of Antifa and BLM rioters who tried to burn down a federal courthouse in Portland, a much more serious federal crime. And now the Dodge has turned its attention to parents complaining about schools racializing and sexualizing their children. The military has been similarly politicized under the Biden administration. Its function is to be a lethal threat to foreign adversaries, not a political partisan or a social experiment in woke ideas. But the generals and admirals in charge know that the Biden administration is enthralled to identity politics, so, to further their careers, they bring woke concepts into the military at the expense of its basic function. And with respect to that basic function, Biden, while backing major spending increases in many domestic programs, has left the military with a reduced budget, in terms of purchasing power. At the same time, our adversaries are rattling their sabers.
First, let's show you this Russian army video.
Это первый день твоей новой жизни. Что ты знаешь о себе? На что ты способен? Вопросы могут остаться без ответов, но разве ты сможешь знать себя? Познать границы своих возможностей? К черту границы! Ты готов ломать себя? Да, потому что без врага нет боя, а без боя нет победы. Но на самом деле, главный враг вчерашний — ты. Твоя задача — выследить врага, догнать его, превзойти, стать лучше, чем он, и вернуться назад. Победить.
All right, I don't speak Russian, but I assume he was saying something to the effect of, you know, we're serious people and I've got to go do something and I'm fighting for my country. But what you're seeing is the Russian government is putting out an ad saying, we want soldiers, we want to be able to defend our country, we're going to do what we got to do. Now allow me to show you what the U.S. Army put out last week.
It begins in California, with a little girl raised by two moms. I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. Standing at the altar to marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class. I found it. A way to prove my inner strength and maybe shatter some stereotypes along the way. I'm U.S. Army Corporal Emma Malone Lord, and I answered my calling.
We're screwed, people. You get it? You get it? If you give me a, East Village lesbian versus Vladimir Putin, who's gonna win? What are we doing? What are we doing? That's great. Nobody cares if you're gay. Nobody cares if you're straight. Nobody cares if you're trans. But which one of those seems like a country that is saying we are here? We are here for a purpose. We are here to defend ourselves. We are here because we believe in the documents that got us here, and we are strong and don't mess with us. On the U.S. Army ad. Now, they shut off comments, so you're not allowed to comment on that, but this is absolutely incredible. There are 4.2 thousand, so 4,200 likes, 4.2 thousand likes, 86,000 dislikes. Are we inspiring people? Are we inspiring people? I don't know. Right. And again, I just want to say fantastic work with that cartoon girl and her lesbian mothers. That's wonderful. It's great. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just wonderful. But I think Putin's got a leg up on us. Like Putin's watching that video going, we're okay, guys. Don't worry. Invasion begin next week. Okay.
Finally, it is worth commenting on Biden's character. Biden is prone not just to embellishing the truth, but to outright lying.
There's much talk online about whether Joe Biden is in cognitive decline, whether he has dementia, why he's so incoherent. Now, I'm no doctor. I'm not going to make a medical diagnosis, apart from to say that in terms of his speech and his memory, there's clearly undeniably been a lot of decline in recent years.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
But today, forget the weird stuff that Biden says that doesn't make any sense.
All men and women created by you know the thing.
Forget all of that, though, and focus on his falsehoods. The fact that he just makes stuff up, that he does seem to be a fabulist. Here are just 5 examples. Number 1, his arrest in apartheid South Africa. The former vice president said 3 times during the month of February alone that he got arrested trying to see Nelson Mandela in prison.
I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
Except it's a lie. Biden himself was forced to fess up on CNN.
When I said arrested, I meant I was not able to move. I guess I wasn't arrested, I was stopped.
To be clear, he didn't misspeak, he didn't misremember, it wasn't a gaffe, it was a lie. And a really bad one, because he even claimed at one point last month that Mandela later thanked him for getting arrested. Number 2, there's the silver star that never was. Over the years, Biden has told a moving but false war story in speeches and at rallies. He did it in New Hampshire last August.
This guy climbed down a ravine, carried this guy up on his back under fire, and the general wanted me to pin the silver star on him. I got up there and stand, this is God's truth, my word is a Biden. He stood at attention. I went to pin him, I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir, do not do that. He died. He died.
He didn't pin the medal on the guy, who wasn't a Navy captain. He just made it up. And Biden has told this story time and again over the years, changing the details in it ever so slightly on each occasion. So sorry, it's not a gaffe, it's pure misrepresentation. Then there's Iraq, where the former vice president says he only voted for the war because the Bush administration tricked him.
I made a mistake. I said it 14 years ago. I trusted George Bush to keep his word. He said he was not going to go into Iraq.
Except Biden was calling for war with Saddam Hussein in 1998.
The only way we're going to get rid of Saddam Hussein, and it's going to require guys like you in uniform to be back on foot in the desert, taking taking Saddam down.
He also says now that he opposed the Iraq war as soon as it started.
From the moment shock and awe started, from that moment, I was opposed to the effort and I was outspoken.
A complete fabrication. Here he is several months after the invasion began, praising both the war and George Bush.
Some of my own party have said that it was a mistake to go to Iraq in the first place. But the cost of not acting against Saddam, I think, would have been much greater. The President of the United States is a bold leader and he is popular.
Again, Biden just makes stuff up. He makes demonstrably false claims without an iota of shame. Number 4, there's Biden's role in the civil rights movement, which is pretty easy to summarize. He didn't have one.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes. And we changed attitudes.
When I was about the age of the guy standing over there, I got involved in the civil rights movement.
He knows it's untrue. Don't take my word for it. Take his.
I was not an activist. I was not out marching. I was not down in Selma. I was not anywhere else.
Imagine as a white guy lying about your role in the civil rights struggle. Finally, you all know that Biden had to quit his 1988 campaign after he was caught plagiarizing parts of his stump speech. But Biden also lied about his grades.
I think I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect. The first year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom 2/3 of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay, went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class.
In fact, he graduated 76th in a law school class of 85 students. Joe Biden has a habit of making things up. And it's not just wrong, it'll hurt him. Because if you think the guy who made up getting arrested in South Africa, who falsely claimed to have marched in the civil rights movement, if you think he's the safe candidate against Trump, then I'm sorry, but you're lying to yourself.
His campaign lied about his son Hunter's laptop, saying that well-substantiated reports of its contents was Russian disinformation. He lied about Hunter's business dealings, including possible influence peddling, with the Chinese. He lied about what Donald Trump said regarding the Charlottesville protests. He lied about Kyle Rittenhouse, claiming the teenager was a white supremacist before his trial even began. Throughout his political career, he has plagiarized and told whoppers about things he is supposed to have done, but didn't do. Biden has attained virtually no successes as president. But as the above list attests, he has produced a lifetime's worth of major failures in less than a year.
My Coast Guard aides have been excellent. One of them taught me that, and I quote, "The Coast Guard is that hard nucleus about which the Navy forms in time of war."
I can only assume that you will enjoy educating your family about how the Coast Guard is, quote, the hard nucleus around the Navy forms in times of war. You're a really dull class. I mean, come on, man. Is the sun getting to you? We can't rebuild our economy and meet this climate crisis, exacerbating the need for environmental justice. Sorry, as a bug. Speaking of the environment. We need to work again with Canada and Mexico as neighbors, not as adversaries. 1.2 billion. So you go ahead and you stack spaghetti sauce at a store in a supermarket. You control the guy or the woman who brings out the carts on.
I mean, but I mean, it's not about, I know.
From the time I got to the Senate 180 years ago, as well as my tenure as vice president. All men and women created by you know the thing. COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, it's taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it. The people from the medical school right there. I want to be clear. I'm not going nuts. I'm not sure whether it's a medical school or where the hell I spoke. I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation. The president asked me. I took on Putin in terms of Iraq. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down, so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap, and I've loved kids jumping on my lap.